Hello and welcome to Wise Up on Air. I'm Damian Kaspauer and super excited today to be diving into the audio vision of Neva from concept to sound. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what is going on out there with Audiokinetic in the community and then get to our feature presentation. Wwise. It is a interactive audio software for making cool dynamic sounds for immersive experiences. We just dropped a 2023.1.8 update, which added an option to disable the opening of new tabs when you're double clicking. Just a little feature tweak informed by feedback that we've gotten from the community. So now you can disable that opening a new tab on double click, and it will give you the recycle tab no matter what. And again, just a way that the community has reached out and given us feedback about our object tab navigation, and we've responded in the latest point release, along with bug fixes and community reported bug fixes. So again, not only are we releasing a new version every year, but we have releases on a regular schedule, updating our major releases, continuing to improve and stabilize across a full release. And speaking of that, we are in the Wwise summer of beta for our next full release, 2024.1. And beta 3 is out there. It's in folks' hands, and we've been getting feedback on that across these betas this summer, especially thanks to our new property editor that we've dropped in. So a new way to edit properties in context as part of your object tab selection, with a host of features that fill out and bring to you a modern way of reaching for properties in your project. And as we have been out in beta this summer, we've gotten feedback starting early. Actually, before we even hit beta 1, we had folks from the community giving the alpha version of Wwise a try in focused feedback sessions, and some of that feedback resulted in the addition of a simple property editor expand and collapse button, giving the ability to quickly get it out of the way and keep your focus on the object editor or primary and secondary editors. So again, just great feedback from the community that we were able to get and action on towards that initial beta release. That also extends to the recent beta 3, where we removed pinning properties in the property editor in favor of a way for people to choose their own favorites that they wanted to see as part of a favorites property filter. So you have that at your fingertips now to customize, and it's really about giving people what they need to be able to see what they want about the workflows that they're reaching for. So great feedback over the course of this beta, leading towards the iteration on the property editor features towards what people want and need. So thanks to folks who are giving their feedback out there on the beta. Additionally, in beta 2, we brought some updates to the way that we presented our scaling distance percentage in the attenuation editor, adding in an effective max distance column, modifying the graph, again, in response to feedback that we got from folks who put their hands on it during the beta. So very thankful for that. And with that in mind, you still have time to jump into the beta, head to the Audiokinetic launcher, get that beta 3 installation and give us some feedback. You can take the survey right there through the Audiokinetic launcher attached to the beta version that you install. We can never have enough feedback from you. We've also got bug reporting, the Wwise community Q&A. We've got our support channel and an email address for general feedback. So no matter what way you like to communicate to bring your experience with the beta to Wwise, please do, so that we can learn and continue to make these improvements in the direction of your workflows. And object editors in that center focus. One of the big reasons for moving those properties into the new property editor is to get these object editors into your center focus and bring those workflows directly in front of you. Along with this focused and iterative real-time workflow that is enabled through live media transfer and expanded live editing when you're connected to Wwise and the game engine. So that's, being able to swap out originals in your Wwise project, have them arrive immediately to the game when you're connected and profiling with Wwise. We think it's this kind of iteration that will get you closer to the kind of experience with sound that you're reaching for your games. We did a whole deep dive on the beta back in July. You can jump into our Twitch and YouTube channels to get the replay. We also did a deep dive with the integrations team, talking about our Wwise and Unreal integration features for 2024.1. That's auto-defined soundbanks in Unity, as well as Unity addressable support, and Unreal packaging. So jump over there and dig into that. We've also got the Wwise Expo coming up in November, nearing the full release of Wwise 2024.1. So make sure that you subscribe and like to get notified when we go live with that. And we're going to have a bunch more live streams featuring features from Wwise 2024.1, including a live media transfer and expanded live editing demo that I'll be doing with Guillaume Renaud from our support team. We're going to have a great time. We hope you can join us, and we just want to keep featuring all the cool things in the box that developers here at Audiokinetic have been working on to empower your workflows using Wwise. And on that note, Strata continuing to grow as your library in multi-track format, a collection of Reaper projects, rendered audio files, and individual source files in a multi-track format, Reaper projects and sub-projects, a bunch of effects, as well as our integrations. We've got partners, subscription options, and our collections just keep growing, including the new collection, Sorcery Strike, that just dropped. So we've got different elemental categories for these magic sounds like earth, fire, ice, lightning, and water. A ton of different gestures of those sounds. Jump over to our YouTube channel to check out Chase Steele's overview of that collection. He always does such a great job of digging in, showing the value of it in an interactive workflow so that people can get down to the fun part of sound and bend this to their experience. We've also released a third free sample collection featuring our sub-projects from our physics collection. So again, a ton of variations here, layers, depth for you to dig into as part of this free sample and use them right away in your projects. These are free license for you to apply them in your projects. So just jump in and get started. It's a deep, deep well of possibility for authoring and speeding up your sound design workflows. Speaking of that, we've got a bunch of folks out there in the community doing amazing things with Wwise. We like to feature that as part of our Wwise Community Spotlight. You know, if you've been following along these last few live streams from us, you'll know that Air Wiggles has been doing the Game Audio Implement Tournament, and they've got the reveal coming up for the winner of that tournament in just a couple of hours here. So jump over to their channel after this and hear more about the Implement Tournament, what people have created as part of that. Some folks out there using Wwise as well as other solutions, and really just reaching for great sounding experience in the context of this Implement Tournament. Meanwhile, over in the community, as part of that, Mount West Music has created a way to map music created in Reaper with Wwise. So a extension that allows you to map your different music pieces directly over into Wwise as part of the interactive music system. And really this is growing out of a continued investment that we have in our Wwise Authoring API, or WAPI tools. So in the community, they're able to access this and use it to supercharge their pipeline, in this case, in conjunction with the Implement Tournament. So a great tool that enabled that, and I'm interested to see how that continues to grow. You can dig into their video over on YouTube. Meanwhile, Mateus Villano, who was featured here earlier this year as part of the Lariant audio team on Baldur's Gate 3, has released, as part of a group of folks, a open source Python and Wwise wrapper for WAPI. So allowing for Python scripting with WAPI, called Pywise. So if you're interested in WAPI and have started feeling your way into that powerful set of tools and want to leverage that as part of a Python workflow, it's definitely something to check out from Mateus. In addition, we've had some cool folks out there reaching into Faust, which is a DSP framework. Guido Fazzito, longtime Wwise Up on Air participant, has created a demonstration that I think is super cool, using a infinite repeat delay. I have that for my guitar pedal board, but he's created a Wwise plugin to do some cool stuff using the Faust to Wwise project that's out there. So if folks out there are interested in creating their own plugins and they want to leverage the framework that Faust provides to do that, tools are there and examples to get you going in that direction. So thanks, Guido, for sharing that, and to the folks out there who are enabling, really interesting opportunities out there as part of our plugin API, and just ultimately making cool stuff for dynamic audio in games. Meanwhile, Audiokinetic is out there in the community. We talked on the last live stream about being out in Europe as part of our Wwise tour and in Shanghai. And we're going to be in Burbank next week at Game SoundCon. So this is going to be a yearly opportunity to touch base with us as part of the Game SoundCon proceedings. Any folks out there headed, hope to see you there on the ground. We're going to be starting each day of that conference in a Ask Me Anything at the expo floor, along with Strata product manager Simon Pressey. We're just going to be there chatting about Wwise and Strata and answering questions first thing in the morning. From there, we've got 2 days of presentation focused on education around Wwise, trying to give you the tools that you need to reach for these ideas using Wwise in dynamic immersive experiences. So a bunch of hands-on stuff, some music. We're going to talk acoustic phenomena, dynamic mixing. We'll go over what's new in 24.1. And then on day 2, we're going to dig into optimizations, real-time iterative sound design using Strata, part 1 and 2 of interactive music. Why 3D audio? So understanding the object-based pipeline. And we're going to try to pull off a couple of panels. So swing by if you can for an accessibility and audio panel. And we'll see if we got another surprise or two in there. Meanwhile, we're planning our first new series of live streams that we're calling Audiokinetic Community Conversations. So these are, top of mind topics coming out of conversations we're having with the community, where we're trying to bring together folks who can help us, frame things happening out there with immersive audio. And the first one we're going to tackle is Wwise outside of games. So applying creativity at runtime. And we've got a host of panel guests who will be joining us and helping to illustrate different ways that Wwise is used at runtime outside of games. So if you're interested in landing and having a different perspective on what Wwise can do in your pipeline, join us for that in November. And in case you missed it last time, the Wwise adventure game 3D printable models are now available. This was a passion project of Mas Moretti, one of the creators of the Wwise adventure game. And what a cool thing to have this physical, almost tribute to that education and certification using the Wwise adventure game. Print them out yourself, have them there on your desk as a reminder of the hard work that it takes to, get started sometimes with something new, and how the Wwise adventure game has been positioned as a way for folks to easily access what Wwise can do in the context of a real game using the Unity game engine. But more than that, it's just fun. So grab that printables or Maker World templates and print out your own evil spit plants or heads. We'd love to see those in the socials, so be sure to tag us if you share them. But have fun, and thanks, Mas, for sharing those with the community. But I think that's about it for me today. As we lead into the Wwise Developer Spotlight, I'm excited to welcome to the live stream Rubén Rincón. Garcia, good to see you here today. How are you?
Hello, folks. Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, Damian. How are you doing?
So good. It's great to be landing here with you again, and I'll throw it back. Like, we had a great time a few years ago after the launch of Gris from Nomada.
True.
Where we talked through the work that you've done there. I'm so excited to be back talking about Neva today. Thanks for being part of the community and sharing your experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
Great. And tell me a little bit about how you arrived, where you're at now, and what the path to get here has been.
So I'm currently working at Sound Creators of this Coliseum as audio director. I joined it in January this year. Before that, I was working at Nomada Studio as audio director of Neva, our latest project, the one that we are going to talk about today. It was such a journey. Before that, I was working on Fall Guys, so I moved from Fall Guys to Neva, and then from Neva to Sound. We are currently working on multiple projects that are not public yet, but apart from that, I'm super happy and grateful for the opportunities that I have had in my career. So
that's great. Man, a ton of great projects there that you've been part of, and landing now at Zaum. I can't wait to hear what you get up to with the team over there. Obviously, some fantastic experiences in store. So.
Thank you so much. Indeed, the team at Zaum is fantastic. We have Katerina and Mireia, some designers in the team, and they are like amazing. They have such a good taste for audio. So
yeah,
I can't ask for anything better.
It's great. I was thankful to meet Katerina in August at Gamescom. So
True.
Always great to see folks from the community out there. And again, I learned a lot speaking with her. So fantastic. Tell me, Neva, this is a game that has just shipped in the last week or so. How does it feel? What's the sentiment been so far?
So far, the sentiment is like very positive. Like the reviews are going very, very well. It's true that it has more action than Gris, so perhaps some players that are coming from Gris, they can feel a bit, I don't know, like harder this game to play, let's say. However, we introduced something that is called history mode. So you can play the game without dying, without receiving any kind of damage. It's easier, so it's more accessible to those kind of players, right? So I think that the balance is very well done in this project. The studio has taken some risks, let's say, in terms of gameplay. Especially we listened to the players that played Gris, and perhaps they were missing a bit more of gameplay mechanics and action and so on. So we listened to them. The studio wanted to evolve as well as creators, as artists, as game developers, and they wanted to explore new areas of game development. After 4 years of development, we made Neva, sorry. It was released a week ago, as you well said before, and so far it's going very well.
Great.
People are happy with it. So yeah.
And give me the high level picture of the game. I know I'm queued up to jump into it, but for folks who might not have heard of it yet, give me the rough outline or premise of the game, and yeah, what its intention is.
So I have a few slides about that. So I don't know if you want me to talk about this now, or perhaps we can jump.
Let's jump in. It sounds great.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
So let's talk a little bit about Neva. But before that, I have a trailer that, if you don't mind, I can play.
Perfect.
So everybody can be like have more information about the project, the game, how it looks like, and how it sounds like.
Neva.
That's Neva. It's beautiful, isn't it? Like the art, animations, the music from Berlin is it's amazing. Yeah, I feel so lucky to be part of something that beautiful.
And it has such a clear legacy coming from Gris. Like I see it, the DNA is all there, and it's so great when we get a game studio that really embraces an aesthetic in the way that Nomada has.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Damian. Yeah. In fact, well, I will talk about this right now because I talked to Conrad Rosset, the creative director and art director from the studio, and he gave me like some key points of the project, like in comparison to Gris as well, what's the difference and so on, so we can have like a better picture of it. But just to introduce you to Neva, it's a 2D platform, puzzle, action, and adventure game. We introduced like more mechanics in comparison than Gris. It's about the story of Alba and her wolf companion, which is called Neva, and they are embarked on this adventure through the rapid world. the key here is that the relationship with the ball, as they learn to work together, helping one another to brave like dangerous situations, basically, right?
Excellent.
So after talking to Conrad gave me these 4 key points about the creative direction of the project, which is like art, narrative, traditional art and animation, and quality over quantity. On one hand, we have the art, which is like the Nomada's identity, right? Like it's defined by the fusion of art and music in a very unique way. In Gris, this synergy between audio and art was expressed through the colors. When you watch it, a new color, it was like this explosion of animations, art, music, sound, and so on. But in Neva, we can manifest like this synergy through like executions or chases. That means that it's going to be more like into gameplay stuff rather than cinematics, which we also have cinematics as well, right? And they are impressive. On the other hand, we have the narrative side of things. This game explores like the complex relationship between a mother and her child, and this is something that Conrad really wanted to transmit through the art, the animations, the sound, the music, the gameplay, through everything, right? Yeah, basically we're portraying this emotional bond from both perspectives. So from the mother to the son and from the son to the mother, basically, because as long as you are playing, the wolf is like growing, and you can see that the wolf is like managing situations in different ways depending on her state. So that's very cool. On the other side, we have traditional art animation. Conrad like really wanted to highlight the artistry in the game. So the comparison, if you compare Gris with Neva, you can see like the difference in the art direction. There is some common spaces, right? But they look like quite different from each other. Like for example, you can appreciate in Neva like the visible lines, the splashes, and the brush strokes, because Conrad really wanted to make sure that people knew that Neva is crafted by human hands, basically, right? Emphasizing this artisanal nature over realism, basically. And then we have quality over quantity. Something that people have said, like after playing Neva, is that they would like it to be a little bit longer. It's around 4 or 5 hours. However, the studio is pretty clear about this, and the fact is that the studio prioritizes refining the experience as much as possible, like going very into the details over quantity. Like we rather prefer to have a short game that feels as best as possible, polish like every millimeter of the game, instead of having like a 20 hours game with bugs or maybe some parts that you could then like focus as much as you would like to because you didn't have time, which is something very common in video games, right?
Well,
sometimes you need to decide where to put the efforts.
Exactly, and there's a old saying, always leave them wanting more.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
bad thing to create a highly polished experience that delivers on all of these key points. And I'm a huge fan of shorter games. Like I think they,
Me
at
too.
their best, can deliver a experience that is, plays to the strengths of the medium in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you,
Great.
Damian. So basically, this is like the creative direction on like the 4 key points from the creative direction from Conrad in Neva. Some other details about the game. This is the last game from Nomada Studio. It was in development for 4 years. In total, we were working on audio around 2 years. Because during at the beginning I was working as a freelance in my spare time, then I joined like full time, then I left, then other people took care of the project. So in total, it's around 2 years of audio work basically. In total, we were working 4 sound designers plus 1 voice actress in the project. The technology that we used, sorry, was Unity and Wise. Everything worked very well, by the way. And we had like a like a lot of sounds variations, including like almost 500 distinct variations of calling out to Neva. This was a bit mental, and we will talk about this later, and you will see. But this was very important as part of the gameplay and the narrative. And as a funny detail, multiple dogs were auditioned for the role of Neva.
Yeah.
um, This was like the audio team, like people involved on the audio during the whole development. We have Jordi, Jaime, and Gabri, which were some designers working on Neva. We have Cristina Peña, which is the actress who put the voice to Alba, your character. We have Berlin as the composers of the game. They did like a fantastic work once again. Roger Mendoza, which is the lead producer and programmer, he was like super supportive and helpful about like organizing our work, helping us with deadlines, helping us implementing stuff, and so on. So yeah, thank you, Roger. We have also Albert from QA, which was also super supportive and helpful as well. Some dogs, Coco, Jaco, and Ella, some of the dogs that I recorded for Neva. And then that's me, Ruben.
Excellent. And it really does take a whole team to create something that polished and with that much
absolutely.
detail. So congrats to you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, at the end of the day, we struggle a little bit with time because, you know, audio is always at the end of the chain, right? So we have dependencies from everybody, but everything worked very well. And yeah, I think that we all are happy with the results.
Nice.
These are some pictures of the development. As you can see, graphic design is my passion. So my apologies for this photo collage. But as you can see, the dog in the left side, that's Coco, that's my dog. I recorded him just for a few grants. Yeah, he's lovely. And then there's some locations that we recorded, like there are some parts in Spain. There is also a city in Germany called Speyer. I spent a week there with my partner, so as an audio person, you know, you always have like an audio recorder with you. So I spent a few days recording some sounds in there. We also recorded some sounds during the night as well, because you know that ambiences change from day to night as well. There are other animals and other details, you know. And then the other pictures that we have is Jordi on the bottom right side recording ambiences in Barcelona. And then the other picture is Gabri, Cristina, and myself in the audio room recording voices and other stuff for Neva. It was very cool.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of love for Coco in the chat, folks. Yeah, love seeing dogs. That's great.
Yeah, so talking a little bit about audio direction, just to give a few key points. We wanted to focus on the audio experience, like following the formula from Gris, right? Like we wanted to create this minimalist and delicate atmosphere, but guiding the players through the narrative and through the art. In this game, we used a lot of leitmotifs that you will see later, and we wanted to give way more feedback than with Gris to players through sounds, like enhancing some certain moments in the gameplay, like when you resolve a puzzle and things like that. We have some examples that we will listen to later. We also defined some audio signature per characters. Basically, there are four, let's say, which is Neva, the wolf, Alba, your character, the boss queen, which is like the final boss of the game, and then enemies. And we will talk about enemies as a group later. And on the other side, we have the seasons, because this game is happening during a year. Let's say you go through summer, fall, spring, and winter. Not in the correct order, sorry. Yeah. and we wanted to keep some signature sounds for the different seasons, but we also wanted these seasons to feel like very special, right? Because they have like a strong narrative impact in the game. As I said, we wanted to focus on emotions, moment, and transitions. This is something that we will talk deeply later with some examples, because we took a lot of references from movies more than games, and we wanted to keep this linear feeling, let's say, in gameplay. Sound design is super percussive, and it's in tune with the music from Berlinist. Not everything needs to be in tune, right? But the sounds that we wanted to be in tune, they are. And I think that it worked very well. It's very rich in details, and we use Wwise as a creative tool. I always say that tools are there just to support creativity. It cannot, like, let's say, yeah, they are there to support your creativity, right? In this case, we use Wwise as one of our main creative tools. For example, we are like multi-layering inside of Wwise, applying different variations to the same sound in different layers, so we have more control over everything, more in detail, and that was very helpful. And for this game, something that Wwise helped us out, like we were thinking more about, okay, this is going to be the implementation process. This is how we want sounds to be implemented. Let's translate that into sound design, right? So
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's
that was very
exciting.
helpful.
I know we're digging into the Wise project a little bit here soon, so
Yeah,
it'll be great to see, the how that arrived as part of your project. And yeah, again, having this idea of arriving to your tools, using them in a creative way, but uh, maybe it's fair to say there's no magic, they're tools, right? The magic
exactly.
comes in how you arrange all of these elements as you've displayed here in support of this experience, again focusing on emotions, moments, transitions, all of these feedback mechanisms, or different emphasis that you choose. This is really the what makes the sound for Neva special, and the tools just enable you to give these things the appropriate focus.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Damian.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not the most technical person in the world. Let's be honest, but Wise was like super helpful. You will see, like in comparison to Gris, Gris was like super simple, very minimalist in the technical side of things, right? With Neva, we have events, calling to sounds, setting up parameters, setting up states, everything going on like in the same event. So it's a little bit more complex, but everything worked like super well.
Yeah.
Some notes about the creative direction in the project. As I said, the focus is always like the player experience, right? We were strongly influenced by Asian percussion, like taiko drums and things like that, and strongly influenced by Asian movies instead of other games in this case. Like some references are The Handmaiden, Decision to Live, In the Mood for Love, and of course Princess Mononoke, as you can tell, right? As you can see in the game, the wolf, the girl, and so on. Yeah.
I did see a little
Um.
bit of that influence there.
Yeah. Exactly. I personally want the audio experience to feel as much soft and delicate as possible, keeping this minimalism, right? We also focus on character expression because, as you will see and as you have seen in the trailer, Alba only says Neva. That's it. You don't say like other commands or words or anything like that, just Neva. So we needed to communicate a lot of emotions just with one word, right? Um, we will see later how the structure with the voiceover is done, the variations that we have and whatnot. But this was like one of the key parts of the creative direction. Some of the tools that I personally used it for sound design was tremolo. You can feel the tremolo along the whole game. Automatizer, like not automatizer, but it's always there. Granular synthesizers, sampling, pitch shifting, and convolution reverb and delay. Those two ones, the convolution reverb and delay, especially because we have played a lot with the tails from the sounds to create these transitions smoother, like more minimal, more like softer, right?
Yeah.
We will see later. And musical sound design inspired by Nintendo's approach to audio. Nintendo is always a reference. They always do everything well, right? So yeah, we were very inspired about that. And we don't have that much like musical sound design, let's say, as Nintendo has, but still it was like one of our references. And some insights on the technical audio direction. Dynamic range. Um, the dynamic range in the game is a bit funky, let's be honest. While you're explorating the area, like just resolving puzzles and things like that, the loudness is around -30 dBs, more or less, like in general. But then suddenly you can jump into a combat, into an arena, things like that, and the loudness jumps to -19 to -17. quite a lot of difference, right? That's because we wanted to keep this contrast between exploration, puzzles, like that rhythm, right? And combats. And the other part is that I personally wanted players to feel like a relief after a combat. So we used the dynamic range for that.
And
Luckily,
I
everything.
imagine that
Sorry.
that relates a lot to how the gameplay is structured as well, where you
Mm-hmm.
have those moments of combat that where your dynamic range changes, but then you have the, I think as you said, kind of an, you can breathe in between, and that is really a combination of, well, the systems for mixing that you set up, but also
Yeah,
of the gameplay itself, giving
exactly.
space for those exploration and puzzle segments so that people aren't fatigued by, you know, a constant combat situation.
Exactly. Yeah, you're completely right. Indeed. And then we have the soundbanking strategy, which is defined per chapters and enemies. We will see later. We have a more complex mixing system than Gris. We use like states auto-ducking. We didn't use auto-ducking at all on Gris. In Gris, it wasn't needed. In this case, it was uh, such a very helpful tool, let's say. It was very
Nice.
cool to have. And we use other techniques as well. We'll see later in the West project. Consistent naming conventions. This is very important for me as well. They were like established from day one because you know the project grows and grows and grows, and suddenly you are profiling and you see that you are calling something called Win01, and it's like, where is this coming from, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this was very important as well. Something that we also have is enemy activation control. Neva is a 2D game, right? So in order to have more control over propagation and game feel, we are activating and deactivating enemies per area in the different levels. This is managed by code. At the end of the day, this was done by Rear, and it worked very well. Also, it helps to control performance, so that's very cool. And as you can read, we have more performance budget, not only for audio assets, which we have like a lot in comparison to Gris, but we also use a lot of effect boosters as well, like delays, reverbs, EQs, and so on. And everything went very well, even in Switch. So
I wonder if you could talk a little bit to what the value is for you between effects that you render as part of your sounds versus effects that you put onto a bus and maybe have the dynamic control. For you, how are you thinking about those things across those two different use cases?
that's a very good question indeed, because um, it's a mix of both scenarios. Like basically, we have trigger areas in the whole game, and each trigger area is controlling like ambiences, but reversants as well. So as long as you're moving from one area to another, we maybe change the reverb so they can feel it feels different and so on. But we are playing with overlapping reverbs, so the transitions between those reverbs are like very smooth. Plus, if for example, I don't know, you are coming from a battle, let's say, we play like a sound at the end of the battle. That sound already has the reverb on the proper sound, right? Like the tail and so on, just to say performance as well. But we use a lot of real-time reverb in the game, and that's like what glues everything in the different areas of the level.
Great. So
I don't
it's
know if I answered to your question.
that was a great answer. Yeah, absolutely. So again, you have that, you know, you have the availability in Wwise to add it as a kind of glue across your
Yeah,
elements. It's environmental. It's maybe even aesthetic at some point, but it
exactly.
allows for this smooth transitions, tweakable at runtime, and you know,
Hmm.
tunable for whatever the scenario is.
Exactly. For example, all the voiceover from enemies to your character to Neva, they have river sense as well. So
Great.
um, yeah, everything glues like as I say like very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, cool, cool. Thanks.
And just to,
Folks
to,
out
to
there
give
with
you
more
like,
questions, if you want to drop them in the chat, we'll carry them to the live stream when it makes sense.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, we can
Cool.
we can respond to any question whenever you consider that. So just to give you some differences between Gris and Neva, because the studio has evolved a little bit since then. The approach to audio was quite different from one game to another. On Gris, we have like audio supporting art and animations. Music was the main character of the audio experience. Audio was like more in the background, let's say, right? Not that like with that protagonist role, let's say. We followed a very minimal approach from a design and technical point of view as well. We wanted to play safe. It was our first game. We were learning a lot. We wanted to do some as best as possible without becoming crazy, you know. We had less resources than Neva. It was our first game, right? So, you know, you are starting, less resources at the end of the day. And I had less experience at that time. We followed a minimal and basic approach to Wwise, as you can recall. And we had a very basic music system, just a few loops playing, transitioning from one loop to another, and that was it. On the other hand, on Neva, the gameplay requires more presence from sound design. Like we had to take like more responsibilities, let's say. And music and sound effects are more balanced. If you play the game, you can feel that. In this game, we added a lot of voiceover to the character, not only calls to Neva, but grunts, efforts, screams, things like that, right? I believe that is more immersive and richer in details because there's more variations, there is more like sounds. We had more time and resources to put more care on like the small details and whatnot. It's more complex from a technical and design point of view. We have taken more risk, as well, from both sides, creative and technical. And the music system is more detailed. We have like the multi-layering, stingers, in out, things like that. So yeah, there's an evolution, let's say. And that being said, we can show a little bit like the Wwise project, if you fancy. We will talk a little bit about naming conventions, the organization, how everything is organized in the categories, the bus structure in the mixing, different elements in the actor mixer, switches, states, RTPCs, etc. So there we go. Did you see Wwise?
I got it. It looks great.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, it's beautiful. So let's start with this is my approach to Wwise, by the way. I always have two project explorers. This is coming from my time at Ubisoft. I learned this from my audio directors at the time, so I'm very grateful about that. This is super helpful. On one column, I used to have like the audio tab with the actor mixer hierarchy, the pulses and whatnot. And on the second tab, I always have the events, right? It makes like, I know, the workflow faster and easier to me. I can move to Soundbanks, to parameter switches, whatever I need here, without losing like the focus on what I'm working on at the moment.
Makes perfect sense.
Everything is divided per categories of sound, let's say. We have ambiences, Foley, UI, sound effects, which is like a group of a lot of things, and voiceover, and then we have music living here. The events are mirroring this naming convention as well. We have everything in like mirroring these categories. Ambiences, well, cinematics, they are in a different like work unit and folder and events because of gameplay reasons. Foley, interface, music, sound effects, and then we have something which we call music, which is just an event that we trigger when we jump into a video and when we come back from a video. This is like setting up a state here, which is like muting everything coming from the gameplay, just to make sure that we don't mix things and we mess with audio, right?
Yeah.
And then we have the voiceover here as well. Just to take as an example, for example, voiceover, we have the voiceover divided per characters. We have Alba, which is your character, and the bosses, enemies, Negro, which is a character that I'm not going to talk about to avoid spoilers. Neo, you will see some references to Neo. Neo was the original name for Neva. So, you know.
Okay.
Development things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we have NPCs as well. For example, let's take Alba. Everything lives under this actor mixer. And then boom, we have the folders, we have more mixers here, we have random containers, switches, and so on. We will see this later. On the other side, we have, for example, ambiences. The ambiences are divided per chapter. A chapter is a season, right? It could be summer, it could be winter, it could be fall. The thing is that depending on the season, we have different levels inside of that one. For example, summer is formed by 2 levels. In this case, is 1A and 1B. Again, a work unit, a mixer here, and then we have like the level divided per area of the level. Generic sounds, open field, and waterfalls, which is like a part with rivers, waterfalls, and so on. Inside of this, there is like everything. Well, one sec. Living here, like ambiences, animals, frogs, different like versions of the ambiences, just to keep these smooth transitions, right? We could play with parameters. We could play with, like, for example, parameter from the meter to the character, which is the listener, right? However, I found out like this approach a bit more like, it's a bit more fancy, it's a bit more expensive from a performance point of view, but in terms of how it feels like, I found it better, so we keep it like that.
Yeah.
It's like, like doubling the work, but
it's true. It's true. And I guess I'll just make one comment on the naming standard is like beautiful. Everything flows and cascades, and at any point, let's think about profiling. You're connected to the game. You can understand where you are, what's being triggered. I think, again, calling out the suffix of the _LP for sounds that are looping, right? Again, being able to easily see at a glance, oh, right, this is a looping sound. I got to make sure that it's set to loop. And, if I see it in the profiler, I know that it's looping. And just, again, beautiful the way that it all, moves from left to right, giving you context and giving your team, your wider team, that clear context about a sound, where it comes from, what it is, and then even behaviorally, what it is doing sometimes. So
yeah, exactly.
Really cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I have a problem with any convention. I like it a lot. So so I try to keep consistency on it. Plus the colors. We attach like linked a color per category. Yeah. Blue for ambiences, yellow for sound effects, red for foley, and events are mirroring that as well. So the idea is that if somebody opens the project, more or less can visually know what's going on, right?
Now, do you carry that all the way down to the audio file itself? So are you embedding in the name of the wave file those that same standard as well, I assume?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. It's a bit mental.
No. It's good.
Sometimes you can have like pretty long names. Like, for example, here, chapter 1, 1A, waterfalls, small variation, LP. It's quite long, I know.
Sure.
But it helps. So
it does.
Yeah.
So
basically, this is it. Thank you so much. We extend the naming convention to everything. For example, states. We have ST and then the category of the state. Is it used for ambiences? Boom. We have state amp, like tier 1, fight, get sword, main menu, things like that. What else? RTPCs. In parameters, RTPC for ambiences, RTPC amp to the altitude, vertical mix, and so on. What else do we have here? The switch. The switch is the same. SW, Foley, music, and the music chapter 2, or SFX enemies, the type of the boulder enemy that you have. The system as well. We use this, for example, the switch is used to adjust the tonality of some sounds. So it is, okay, I'm in the level 1A. This level 1A, it's on, C sharp. Then automatically the switch moves to C sharp, and we are playing those sounds.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing that there's a event or a set state or set switch call at the top of every level that says, okay, set this. And now you've got a state that you can reach for any sound if you want to make a modification based on what chapter you're in. And that just streamlines the mixing workflow.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that in this game, we wanted to use wise as much as possible. As you can see, for example, here we are stopping like an event inside of this one, or in the next one we are setting up like an state here, just to save as much time of engineering as possible, and to have more control over these things on our side, because at the end of the day, this is creativity as well, right? It's like, I'm going to create an event that is not only playing the sound, but it's muting that thing, and it's sending to the river that other thing, things like that, right?
And it's in the hands of the designers in Wise. I think that's a really strong point there, is that now I don't have to go into code over on the game side. I can stay in Wise. I can make these choices. When you're connected to the game and you have, a fully enabled live editing workflow, you can just make those changes on the fly and hear those results immediately. So
yeah, exactly, that's the thing.
That makes great sense.
I always encourage like to my team to create as much states parameters as they really need. Like, look, you have to do, I don't know, like a sound for this level, this area, this action, this gameplay moment. It's up to you to consider if you want to mute the sounds in the background a little bit, or to apply this reverse send here just to enhance a little bit like the moment. I don't know, just be creative.
Yeah, it's true. And if I look at your game syncs again, you're prefixing those with the name of the game sync. So you've got an RTPC in front of the RTPCs. You got a switch or a state prefix. And again, I'm imagining you're on the code side over in the game. And if you need to set an RTPC on a game object, you know what you're looking at when you're in code. Or is there an RTPC being set on this object in code? Well, you have a clear naming standard, again, kind of coming back to it, where you can say, oh, I'm already calling it RTPC. It's called RTPC, new thing. And okay, I don't need to create a new one. So it makes it easy to understand.
Exactly. For example, this is the event that we play, because on Neva you can receive damage, right? And you have like 3 points of health. When you receive like damage 3 times in a row, then you die. The last hit that you receive, when you die, we play this event, which is like, as you can see, it's stopping like a lot of pushes, it's resetting this parameter, it's playing different sounds, and we have more control over it. And it's easier to understand what's going on because of this. Like, okay, RTPC makes low health. Okay, it's the parameter that controls the low health.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean.
Yeah. And if I look at those prefixes for the targets in that list, it's like, okay, I'm doing some sound effects, some voice, I'm going to stop some sounds, I'm going to do a bunch of bus stuff, and a game parameter. Again,
exactly.
Really easy to understand for anyone walking into the project on your team who can now say, oh, that's what's happening when this event fires.
Exactly.
Question coming in from the chat from Guido. Good to see you, Guido. Thanks again for everything that you're doing out there in the community, and good to see you here again. Question for you, Ruben. How did you establish the naming convention? Did you need to change it during development? Did it evolve much, or is it something you've kind of built over the course of your career?
This is the last point, basically. This is something I learned at Ubisoft. I remember when I was working on Rainbow Six Siege, the naming convention was like super clear, and that was something that stuck in my mind. And I have been trying to follow this process in every game that I have worked on. In some, we are doing the same right now. For example, we are categorizing things per following this naming convention as well. It depends on the game that you're working on. Perhaps you need to, I don't know, add like other categories of sound. I don't know. It depends on the game, but in general, I always have seen like the same categories of sound. I mean, just for like UI, voices, music, and sound effects. So basically that's it. But as you can see, for example, here in the sound effects work unit, we have a lot of different sounds, right? Like we have bosses, sounds from chapters, cinematics, the collectible, enemies. The enemies are living here. Generic sounds that we are using along the whole game that they are like common, right? So everything that doesn't live in the other categories goes straight forward to the SFX work unit.
Nice. All right, thanks for the question. Keep them coming, folks. If you have other side quests you want to take during this presentation, just let us know. Again, it's great
Yes, please.
great to see the
Thanks,
Wise
Guido, for the
project, though. I
question.
love it. Thanks for the tour.
Thank you. Thank you. I use it a lot, the queries as well, the Soundcaster sessions. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm always using the same Soundcaster session to to try things, but it works well just to change parameter values, state values, and things like that. Most likely, I use this to test like locally the transitions between exploration and fights, just to make sure that, because as you can see, there are some events that are calling to multiple things. So before breaking anything in the game, I wanted to test locally that everything is safe and working properly, and then we move on.
Yeah, this ability to audition offline, in a kind of safe environment. Yeah,
Exactly.
it helps you arrive with the right implementation in the game.
Yeah, exactly. It's super useful. And then in terms of sound banks, as I said, we have everything divided per chapter, like chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are like the seasons, right? But we also have like, let's say, for example, enemies. The enemies, they have their own sound bank. This is because some enemies are used like in different seasons, right? So it's easier for us just to load up like the bank attached to that enemy, and that's it, rather than okay, just remember to add this sound to this and this and this and this sound bank. That could be a bit messy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, are we using this? And in fact, in Unity, in the prefab, the prefab attached to the enemy is already loading the sound bank. So once that you do it like for the first time, it's done for the rest of the development. And here the same, we have, for example, chapter 4, we have all the folders coming from the events that are according to the different things. Chapter 3 as well is divided into levels, 3A and 3B. They are including like the events that we need. Yeah, very basic. We are not splitting between media and date and events and things like that. Yeah, it's a small project indeed, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to go that crazy.
And as you mentioned, you've got some sound banks that are attached to prefabs in the game that load and unload dynamically. This prevents duplication across multiple chapter sound banks, so that you can
Exactly.
Keep everything streamlined and focused towards the smallest size on disk.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, a trick, let's say, that we use in Neva to keep these transitions smooth and soft. Sometimes we delay a little bit on loading a sound bank because there is a sound being played on the background with a tail that we want to keep until the next level is loaded and you can see the next level, but you have this slightly tail being playing and blending with the ambience from the new chapter. And then after a few seconds, boom, we unload everything and we are good to go.
Yeah, so some special care and handling of how those sound banks are loaded and unloaded to make sure that you've got that smooth transition even after the level is getting
exactly.
unloaded.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, this is basically it. And just to tell you a little bit about the bus structure, everything lives under the master audio bus, right? And we have 3 categories of buses: the audio one, UI, and video. Video is everything that is like a cinematic or a video that we are playing in the game, right? Because most likely, for example, we are posting like everything like this bus audio directly in an event or things like that. Inside the bus audio, we have different buses like ambiences, auxiliary with the effects. As I said, we had more budget for performance, so we have different auxiliary buses per chapter, and there is like other buses per area of the game, and these ones they have their own like effects here, as you can see, delay and reverb and then reverb, delay, reverb, parametric EQ, delay, reverb as well. We went very into detail with this thing because I considered it was like very key to keep like these transitions, this glue, right, that we were talking about before. Foley as well. We have then bosses for Alba, bosses, enemies, and Neva. I like to create that many bosses maybe, but just to have more control over the mixing, right?
Yeah, well, and this is really about exactly that, like having the higher level control over characters in this case, or chapters, being able to make those judgment calls on that higher level, because once you're in the mixing hierarchy, you are, taking all of the tiny little pieces that are part of the experience and trying to get some higher level control of them.
Yeah, exactly. And as you can see here, for example, we have two ducking buses. One is like generic one in case that we wanted to send like a very specific sound through that bus, and then we have one dedicated for health gain. Each time that you recover a point of health, it sounds like let me check for the. I think it's this one. No, this one here. This one. No. Where was that?
Nice to see that Project Explorer filter in play.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I don't remember if it was in general. Maybe live. No. This will be around here. The sound. It's a while since I opened this project. Hit gain. This one. Sorry, it took a while.
Great.
But we are here. So this sound. This sound goes through the bus and so on.
Cool.
It wasn't this sound. There was other sounds, sorry, about the health that I don't recall right now, that goes through this bus. Why? Because we're using the auto ducking, and we are like ducking a little bit some of the other buses just to emphasize that moment, like you're recovering a point, I don't know, of life or any other thing that, sorry, I don't recall at this moment. But we wanted to just to have like the focus on that sound for a very little moment. Then that's why you use the duck system. It worked very well.
Yeah, perfect. And
you
auto
can tweak
ducking,
the curve, the fading.
yeah, it's the amount of time that sound file is playing that it will apply some amount of volume reduction to whatever its target is. So it's like a side chain, but it's automatic and it's based on the length of the file.
Yeah, exactly. And as you can see, we're also using out of states for mixing the game as long as we play. Like when you reach like something that I called flower life, and it's not a flower, it's a tomb, but I don't know why I call it like a flower.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a point in the game where you can recover some life, right?
Yeah.
There is an area defined around it. Once that you go in, we apply this state, which tweaks a little bit the volume of some buses, so you can focus on the ethereal sound that's around it. Like, okay, this is like a magical spot. Something is going to happen here, and it's beautiful, and it worked very well.
Nice.
And we have like different states in here. I don't remember. Yeah, we have other RTPCs here. Which ones? For the book, most likely for the settings as well, right? You can go to settings and then control the volume of the sounds. And we have this thing here, which is called low health. This is a parameter that we use when you have 1 point of life remaining. So the parameter goes from this value to this value. What it's doing is decreasing a little bit the volume of this bus, but it's sending to a river the sounds that we have going through this bus. So it creates this like ethereal moment around you.
Oh, that's fantastic. It reminds me of just this idea of playing with perception, this idea of, diffusion or abstraction. And in the case of this health parameter, it's like, your life is running out. Let's push reality into the background and push forward this abstraction or diffusion. And I think that's such a cool technique dynamically to play with, and really focusing on that emotion piece, right? Again, you're
exactly
channeling the emotion of that moment abstractly.
Yeah. Still, as you can see, thank you, Damian. As you can see, the project is bigger. It has more like RTPCs, and we use a lot of RTPCs states and so on. But still, it's like a small project. We try to keep things simple, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked very well. Yeah, so this is like the Wise project. I have some slides, and we will talk about certain sounds. We can jump from the slides to Wise if you want to.
Sounds great. Yeah, cool. And again, thanks for that walkthrough. Folks have other questions, weave them in, and otherwise, wow. living for that naming standard. Again, for me, I love seeing a Wise project. I love seeing a creator's hands, navigating their own Wise project. It's a pleasure to see you
Thank you.
showcasing the work that you did in your team. I think early on you said, "Hey, I'm not very technical," and maybe that's true. But you have a very clear grasp on, the simplicity and the controls that you're trying to have access to, and it's a kind of, well, it's a refinement to arrive with such clarity, I will say. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
And that's thanks to Wise indeed, because I don't know how to code, for example. I don't know how to program my tools or to implement things by code in Unity or things like that. But Wise is helping me a lot to do like a lot of things in Wise without requiring like an engineer or things like that. Don't get me wrong, a lot of times you need an engineer supporting you, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I need to trigger this sound exactly here. How can we do that?
Yeah.
Let me code it. Perfect. But Wise is like super helpful, yeah.
Love it.
Cool. And just to talk a little bit about gameplay and some of the sounds that we currently have, one of the key aspects in the game is the language between Alba and Neva. In the left corner, we have Alba, the character expression. As I said, Alba only speaks one word, which is Neva, right? But we needed to communicate different emotions and situations with just saying Neva. Everything is supported by grunts and other gestures, but she only says Neva in the whole game. For this reason, the voice performance was like key. Like we have a lot of variations we will see later, but the performance by Cristina Peña, the voice actress, was like amazing and crucial. I mean, I don't see Alba without Chris' voice like on it, right?
Yeah.
And then something that worked really well is the animation work. Like the animations they are brilliant, and each time that you call to Neva, that you pet her, things like that you interact with her, you can feel like the emotions of the animations as well. So on that side, it was very easy working on sound because the animations were like super inspiring, right?
Yeah. And was the
As I
animation work, a one-to-one where you would go to the animation, find the right moment, you've created the sound for it. What was your process for animation? Were you getting captures, designing
yeah.
offline, bringing, yeah, tell me more about that.
So in Neva we have a custom tool called Noah, which is like a an animation like an editor, let's say, for to trigger like events, but not only audio events, any other events, gameplay, programming, and particles and things like that through the animation, right? And it worked very well. So the thing that I do is like I load the character from Alba, for example. Then I have the list of the different animations. I select the animation that I want to make sounds for, right? Then I post play, I see like frame per frame what's going on. I record a video, I put that video into Logic because I work with Logic, put the sounds on it, record everything needed, and then implement everything on Wise. And from Wise, I create the event and I call to that event into the NUA editor, let's say.
Great.
But animations are already done. They don't need to be final, right? As long as the frames are like done, I don't need it to look like super fancy.
Right.
It always helps, but animators, they also need their time to polish, to make a lot of animations. They did like a crazy amount of animations, trust me. So
Yeah.
but the
Okay,
workflow
great.
was very very cool.
Thanks for
And on the other
explaining
side
that.
we have
Yeah.
no problem at all. On the other hand, we have Neva. As I said, Neva is the wolf. She evolves during the game, and we have three states: puppy, young, and adult. Puppy requires care and attention. Young, she doesn't like to listen to you that much, right? An adult is like a mature companion. She protects you and she knows how to handle situations way better. The communication between Alba and Neva, as I said, Alba just says Neva, but Neva only barks, right? How we produce like different barks for three different animals in multiple situations, that was also quite a challenge. So we focus on the personality through the communication. We recorded different barks, growls, moments, but we also used different sound libraries from wolves and their dogs, because I recorded my dogs, but I didn't want to stress them that much, right? I didn't want them to cry that much or anything like that. So, and that's why we did this mix between sound libraries and recordings. And then you will see in some videos later that Neva is like very curious, and you can see her like drinking water from the ground, or playing with flowers, with animals, and things like that. So how we communicate that happiness, that curiosity, everything through barks or other sounds. It was interesting. So far, making sounds for Neva has been like the hardest part of the game for me.
Sure, because there's so much expression tied into their movements and their nonverbal, expressions. So
exactly.
I imagine.
Yeah, and this is like the first layer of Alba calling to Neva, right? We have just one event, which is play voiceover calls Neva, and then everything under that event we have a switch which is controlling these categories. Let's say Neva when it's young, when it's adult, to Bruma. I'm not going to say anything about Bruma because it's another spoiler. So there's another state called Bruma. Epic shouts, which are like very specific moments where Alba is like shooting to Neva. Missing, empty. Why missing? Because you can push like the triangle on the controller and spam quite constantly Neva. But sometimes we don't want players to do that, but they will push the button, right? That's why we have missing. If you push the button, you won't hear anything. And then the puppy. And let's take an example puppy. Under puppy, we have another switch which is controlling the distance, far and close, and missing because of the same reason. And then under each distance, we have the same categories. If you are fighting, if you are tired because you have low life, like your life is like pretty low, your health, sorry. We have arenas, stress, happy, worried, and scripted moments, very specific moments for specific levels that we wanted, like different calls, right? And below these ones, we have like 10, 15 variations of sounds. It's kind of mental, I say. So everything looks like this, basically. And this in Wwise looks like this.
And just so that I'm clear, like every branch of that tree resolves to a random container of the voice actress saying Neva.
Exactly, yeah.
With a different
Each one
inflection, a different age, to a different scenario. It's all just Neva all the way down.
Exactly.
Wow.
And there is some whistles that Gabriel, our sound designer, recorded. So sometimes you say Neva, and sometimes you to call her like that. And it's just very, I don't know, very natural somehow. This is the structure here. This is the main component, voice over Alba calls Neva, as you can see.
Great.
This is like the event that we have, right?
Yeah.
And then everything, 1 second, sorry. And then under this switch, we have like the different categories: Bruma, adult, young. Let's say that. Let's open a puppy, for example, which is the example that we took before. Then under puppy, we have another switch, controlled by an state, Alba, Neva, distance, right?
Yeah.
And then under this switch, we have the different categories: missing, close, and far. And let's open far, for example. We have scripted moments with another switch here, controlled by another part. Another switch here. Voice over Alba, move. Coco. Sorry, Coco just appeared here.
Coco Foley, and a Coco feature. Excellent. This is maybe our first dog on the live stream, so congratulations. And the star of the show.
I can pet you now, Coco. He's here like he wants to cuddle. So Coco, stop. So we have, as I said, like the different switches here, right? And the one for far, for example, as I say, there's another switch here, and it's controlling. Sorry about that. He's trying to get out. Sorry, get out, Coco.
He wants to play some guitar for you, yeah.
It's not the moment, Coco. So we have different states here from the switch, and we are calling to them depending on the gameplay situation, right?
Yeah.
And then inside, I don't know, like for example, the fight one. Inside the fight random container, we have up to 8 different barks with breaths and so on. Right?
Yeah.
And whistles as well.
Neva!
So, and this is like this in every move, in every distance, in different stages of Neva.
Yeah.
But we are just calling to one event, which is the one that I showed you before, voice over Alba calls Neva.
That's amazing.
And it's going through animation.
Yeah, the depth that, so in the animation, you're free to just tag that event wherever there would be a call, and the system is resolving all of the switch states, the switches to arrive at the correct type and variation based on the context.
Yeah, exactly. I have a video here with some variations. We can listen to it.
Great.
Neva! 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 Neva!
Lots of variations in there.
Yeah, and that's, it feels like the prioritization was correct because there's so much emotion linked to that direct connection between Alba and Neva, and you've put so much focus on the diversity, the contextuality, that it really delivers on that emotional intent.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. As I said before, the performance from Cristina Peña, the voice actress, was like amazing. Like you can feel that in the game. Like, I don't know, it's not easy to record. Like, I think that we recorded around almost 1,000 files in total. Just saying, well, there is breathings and other gestures, right? But a lot of sounds just saying Neva. Like, okay, now you are fighting and you need to call to Neva, but we need like 10 variations of Neva while you are fighting and while she is young or adult or a puppy.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I wonder how long it took her to stop saying Neva in her head after these recordings.
Yeah, at some point I was like, I don't know, this is this is a thing about game development, right? Like, it takes a lot of time at the end of the day to release a game, so it's easy to lose the perspective at some point. That's why you need like a clear direction, documentation and so on. So I was like trusting on our decisions from the past, like this is something good. Let's trust on what we decided to do like 8 months ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we just have seen, like the event management. We just use a single event. There is a switch controlling the type of the ball. There is another switch controlling the distance, and there is a switch controlling the mood of the gameplay. At the beginning, we were controlling these switches with an RTPC. However, we introduced like custom scenarios, and it wasn't working that well. So we decided to remove the RTPC controlling the switch, and we keep it like a classic switch, let's say.
Yeah.
And
because if you were controlling it with RTPCs, you were kind of having to keep track of what does 1 mean, what does 2 mean, what does 3 mean.
Exactly.
So mapping it directly to switches, were you taking the RTPC and turning it into a switch, or did you just convert the whole system to use switches?
We have the switch, and we were controlling the switch with this parameter.
Yeah.
But at the beginning it was far and close, but then we introduced like Bruma and missing one. So it was trickier to manage everything just with a switch, because maybe you are like calling to Bruma, but Bruma is far. So it was a bit trickier. It was easier to have things like to keep things simpler, and that's it. You can do that as well, right? But at the end of the day, also for consistency, we are not using RTPCs on switch and anywhere else. So
great.
We decided to remove it.
Yeah. And again, I think that's a smart decision as things start to complexify, get more complex. You sometimes have to change from the simple system to something a little more elaborate, but focused on solving the right problem.
Thank you. Yeah, and just one more note about that is that we also added a lot of character actions like additional barks and gestures to Alba, including like jumping. There is 3 different ledgers for taking damage. You have 3 points of health, right? So if you receive the first hit, it sounds different than the second one because the second one is telling you, okay, you are very close to die. So things like that, and each one of those barks, they have their own variations as well and whatnot. When climbing, we have different barks as well. When you grab the surface to climb, when you loop while you are climbing, then when you stop climbing, when you slide through the surface, things like that. Commands. Yeah, so we recorded a lot of voiceover stuff. Luckily, we had the resources at the time for that.
Yeah.
And then apart from that, we have other characters in the game with voiceover, like 12 type of enemies, 5 bosses. There is the Black Wolf and Bruma. I'm not going to spoil anything here. There is Neva, Adult, Young, and Poppy. And then we have NPCs, let's say, like other animals in the game that require voiceover.
Sure.
And I have some videos here that we can see and listen to about like how Neva interacts with you and with the environment. Let's keep them up play.
Great.
As you can see here, she's like in the young phase, and she's like very angry with the world, as every young person.
Yeah.
We all have in them, right?
Yes.
Then we have this gameplay moment. When Neva grows in that way, she's like recovering your life. So because she's like a magic character in the world. As you can see, some flowers appear here. And then this one as a puppy. Just drinking some water. She's like very curious. She's very happy with the environment, with the flowers and everything around you. And she always look back at you like, where are you, mom? Right?
Yeah.
As I said, the animation work here is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really communicating their bond and relationship for sure.
Then we can move on transitions. We are almost done, I swear you. But as I said, transitions are like a very important and a key moment and element in the gameplay, right? We have like a strong cinematic influence from movies like The Handmaiden, as I said before, right? Like we aimed for these like very, very smooth transitions between moments in the game. To achieve this, we employ like different trigger areas featuring different versions of the same ambient as we talked before, alongside like stringers triggered at precise moments by code. I will show you some examples right now. And then we have this exploration versus combat thing that we were talking about before as well. I personally wanted to highlight the contrast between exploration and combat, which is why we jump in loudness between these moments. This transition is intentionally abrupt somehow, but we also play with these tails and reverb sends to make everything a bit smoother. And I have a video showing some of those examples. Do you want to ask something, Danny?
No, it's great. Let's go.
Okay.
Love these examples.
So those are some of the examples about the transitions. As you can, let me see if I can. Let me do something pretty quickly.
Yeah.
No, not this one. Nah, I can't. Sorry. So at the beginning we saw like this part of the flower that was at the end of a battle, right?
Yes.
Once that the flower is open, and then you have this white thing boom, exploding. There is a very long tail that blends with the ambiences. There is a change in the states in there because we're moving from battle to exploration as well.
Yeah.
So everything is like blending, as I told you before. Then we have the cinematic where there is the boss queen like doing this in the ground with the sword and everything explodes. The tail of that video is pretty long, like in purpose to mix the cinematic video with the gameplay moment, right? And then the chase starts. Then you have seen that there was two falls, like you were falling from a tree that was breaking, and then boom, and the battle starts. The trigger to that sound, the stinger, boom, it's hard coded in the middle of that fall. So then you approach to that trigger, boom, past that trigger, we call to that event, and exactly in the right moment, everything starts. It's like right there, like very millimetric.
Great timing.
Yeah, the same with the rest of them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And luckily, performance.
The whole thing was
well.
so beautiful, the way that it unfolded, and I could hear in many of those examples what you were talking about when you mentioned focusing on certain effects as consistent pieces, especially in some cases the tremolo. I think again you're leaning into that as an aesthetic device that worked really well across multiple clips in that example, and hearing the really smooth transition between a stinger or a cinematic sound effect moment and the way that the music would transition. There were a few moments where we would move from a sound event happening to the music carrying it a little further, and those things, again, hearkening back to what you said up front about the combination of music and sound in those moments.
Thank you so much.
Really
thank
nice.
you. Yeah, indeed, like for example those stingers, they have like multiple layers on it, and some of the layers are in tune with the music of that level, so everything blends like very well together basically.
And are you changing those layers out depending on the level? Is that what you're saying?
In this case, they are very specific sounds, so we are not using real-time like tuning, let's say.
Cool.
But other sounds, they are like being affected like in real time by this. Like for example, let me check Flower Live, this one. Okay, this time I have been faster. As you can see here, we have the same sound in different tone. This is because it's aligned with the tonality of the background music. I really like musical sound design, so I use a lot of sampling and other techniques to make these sounds.
That's amazing, and I love how you're thinking about sound in a musical way, and finding the implementation that allows you to layer that in along with the music, you know, depending on what scene it is, what the key signature of that music might be at a given moment. That's really beautiful stuff.
Thank you so much. I was very lucky because working with Berlin is super easy, right? And it's like, for some reason, we gave a space to each other without talking about that. It's like they know what they have to do, and they do it like amazing.
Yeah.
And then I always find like those spots for audio design, right, that I can fill with like this like piano synthesizer or with percussion and so on, as we will see right now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but
luckily
this might be a good moment to bring in another question from the chat talking about how the creative process was connected to the technical part. For instance, the health example that we gave, you know, how much of that were you defining in pre-production, or was, you know, how much of that might have been discussed with the development team, or how much of it did you just find as you were developing the sound for the game?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I do is, for example, let's take as an example this like a tone that is recording your live, and then you are listening to this ambience that changes depending on the background music, right? First thing that I do is I talk to Conrad, and I want to know like his opinion on this, right? Like, okay, what does this mean? Like, what do we want to transmit about this? I have this idea in mind. Are we aligned on this? Most likely we are always like aligned on the same vision. It's super easy working with him in this way. Like, I know in Gris it was the same in my case, in Neva as well. Like, we understand each other very well, right? So the thing is that I talk to him just to know his creative vision about this component in the game, and he's like, I want this to be like magical, like calm, because this is where you can recover your life and so on. So then I said, okay, I would like the sound to be like this, like you are coming from a battle, exploration, an area, and so on, and this is like a safe place for you, right? So I want an area that is like lowering down the rest of the sound so you can focus. It's like meditation somehow, right? So if you are close to this tone without like recovering light, but close enough, you will listen to these sounds in the background, to these ones.
Yeah.
Plus this one. No, not that one. Not that one. There's another sound now around that I cannot find, which is like
Sure.
ethereal animals. So we have at the end of the day like different layers playing on the background on loop. Then I say, okay, this is going to be across the whole game, right? And this sound has like some musical layers. I need to adapt those layers to the tone of the game. That's why I perhaps need to make like, I think it was like 4 or 5 variations depending on the key, for another 2 or 3 layers of the sound.
Great.
That's what we tweak in real time. Then we give it a try, we implement everything, and if we like it, we go ahead.
Nice. Good answer. And again, I think it's that collaboration across, the team, the composer, and sound that results in, this very special experience of being able to hit those meditation moments at different parts of the game and have the consistency of that design intention working with all of the different pieces. So really nice.
Thank you. So is there any other questions that you want to?
That's a good one.
Are we good to go?
Good.
Perfect. Cool. So just to cover like some of the other sounds that are a bit specific in the game and whatnot, and leitmotifs and things like that. For example, the bosses, like every boss fight start and last hit sounds are the same in every boss fight. This is like kind of a leitmotif. It's the sound that tells you this is a boss, and it's a sound that tells you you defeat him. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So those sounds are, if I'm not wrong, here, boss, this one. You can hear the taikos, you can hear these percussion sounds, you can hear the tail. See, it's like 8 seconds, the sound. Sometimes it was too much, but it works very well. And then the last hit. It's like a powerful hit, right? That tells you, okay, you are down here to defeat this guy. Congrats. Then the enemies are like based on the monkeys. The monkeys are like, I don't know if you recall these enemies that you were defeating that were like and attacking to you. Those are like the basic enemies, right? And then there are variations like the earlites or flying monkeys and things like that. So everything is based on the original monkey, but with a bit of variations. That's some kind of leitmotif as well, because they are kind of creations from the boss queen. I don't want to talk a lot to avoid the spoilers, but you got it, right?
Yeah.
Then the boss queen has signature sounds along the game, because you see her like in different chapters in the game. So for example, when she uses the sword and attacks you and things like that, the sounds are like very, very specific from her. And then we have percussive sounds, as you can hear, as you have here right now with the boss sounds. There are key actions such as recovering health, the UI sounds as well, fighting against the boss that are using a lot of percussion. And this is not coming from Berlin's or the composers, this is coming from us, because we, as I said, we wanted to give this organic and percussive feeling to the players who sound. That's why we recorded different like drums or other things and used other like sound libraries to achieve this. Then the collectible and tones change speed depending on the music tonality per level. This is what we have just seen.
Cool.
And multi-layering in Wwise.
Yep, exactly.
I have a video. This is the last video, I swear you, with some examples of these sounds.
Neva!
And some conclusions. Thank you. Some conclusions about like the game and this journey. It's what we talked before, right? The progress. This project represents like a significant step forward compared to Gris. We took some risks. We took like different project decisions, but it's working well, I would say. Team collaboration. This is always a key. Like everywhere, basically, right? And like communication is key between departments and people. At the end of the day, we are making art, but we are like different like specialties and disciplines aiming for the same thing. So it's super important to be aligned with the way that other people think, and so on. So in this case, with Neva, animation, art, programming, QA teams, they have been incredibly supportive. They were always like giving very useful and helpful feedback. They were like listening to the things that we were doing and so on. So that was very cool. There is a key takeaway that we can take. One major lesson that we learned was the importance of accurate work estimation, right? We for a time we estimate like we were like very optimistic about the workload that we will have. We learned the lesson. Everything went fine, but it's a lesson that we learned for the future. In terms of performance, overall the performance was pretty solid. We just had an issue with a few ambiences in the game, and it was because of streaming limitations. Basically, we forgot to check the streaming thing on the ambience, and suddenly it was like, okay, I'm not loading. Then it was like as easy as running a query, searching for things that don't have ambiences that didn't have the streaming function enabled. Boom, fix it in 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah, technology-wise was like super reliable. No bugs, no issues with integration, no performance issues. It was like such a creative tool, so it was amazing. Yeah, and as a personal note, I feel like very, very grateful for this opportunity, right, to be part of a project with Nomada again. They are like lovely people, and the way that they see video games and audio and music and how everything blends together with art is very unique. So yeah, I feel like super lucky to work with them again, of being able to work with them again. And I also feel very lucky about having the chance to work with more audio people in this game, right? The team was bigger, where there is like a part of everybody on Neva, and that's very cool. Yeah. And that's it. I will play this animation because it's very cool. Just to tell you, like, thank you so much for listening to me for this almost 2 hours. And thanks, Damian and Audiokinetic, for having me once again.
Thank you. I have to say, I love the way that Nomada creates games that have space for audio in all of its ways, shapes, and forms, right? It is a game that very clearly arrives with dialogue as a priority. It finds its priority in as simple a way as it is expressed, but also, again, the way that the game play is organized from a game design perspective, giving that space to the longer tails on the reverbs, giving sounds the opportunity to continue playing out as opposed to, slamming gameplay on top of those moments, letting sound breathe, giving the interaction between sound and music its place so clearly. Again, it really is a collaboration across all disciplines to give each part of the experience its space to be felt, to be experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Just to give you an example on that note, for example, it was very, very, very weird and uncommon to have like Roger or the programmers in the studio coming to me and saying, Rubén, we cannot do this, right? It was like, hey, Roger, can we trigger this sound right in this specific moment in this way? Blah, blah. I was like, let me think about that because it sounds very cool. And then after a few minutes or hours, boom, it's done. That kind of support was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for sharing that experience. I can't wait to play it myself. It just came out last week, and I am so hyped to soak in that this season. It looks and sounds fantastic. Congratulations again, Ruben, to you and the team. So,
thank you so much. Yeah.
Great. Folks following along, thanks for your questions. Wise Up on Air. We love surfacing these stories, these experiences. Y'all got a masterclass in naming standards and how to use them today, amongst other things. So thanks again for joining in, and great to be here with you all. So until next time. And
thank you, folks.
Ruben, take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, take care, folks. Bye-bye.